Welcome to Eight Sided Freaks. Today it is myself and Jerry Walker, and we have a UFC pay per view recap. Big episodes, like I said last week. Love the previews and love the recaps. And we don't even have a card this week anyway. So, good week to have a pay per view card to recap because we've got nothing at all to preview. So, UFC 303, we've got the 5 main card fights. We're going to start at the top at the main event, work our way down, and hit some final thoughts on the prelims, per usual. So, no twists or turns today, pretty straightforward. And like I said, we will start it off right at the main event. Alex Pereira defends his light heavyweight title against Jiri Prochazka, gets it done with a switch kick, head kick in round 2, about 5-10 seconds into round 2. Jerry, what'd you make of that fight, and what'd you make of Alex's performance?
I mean, it's hard to knock him on that performance. I thought he was going to have, had there been 5 more seconds, he would have finished Jiri at the end of the first round. Nasty punch, put him on his butt, and it looked like the fight was done from there. He didn't look like he really recovered, but the fact of that head kick, seeing how long it took Jiri to kind of, everyone was holding him up, and he was still stumbling left and right. That just shows the power Alex has. Defensively, I was kind of impressed also. He only got hit 7 times. Maybe that's a lack of game plan from Jiri. We kind of thought Jiri was going to be the one who had more improvements to make. As we said on our last, as you said, especially on our last preview for last week's episode, did not do any of those. Looked like a completely different fighter than that first fight. Alex sort of dominated from the get-go, and I'm not really overly surprised with the result, with the way they both looked.
Yeah, and like you said, I was very heavy on the idea that Jiri could make improvements based off what he did in the first fight, and I feel like we got the opposite of that. Um, Obviously, Alex Pereira, a great performance as well. I'm not attempting to take anything away from him, but I felt like Jiri went the opposite way. And maybe Alex was better, maybe he wasn't, but I felt like this was a much worse version of Jiri Prochazka in comparison to the first fight. To me, it almost felt like he was a little bit more hesitant than he was the first time around, is kind of what I was thinking watching that in the first round. And maybe that's because he felt the power in the first fight when he got knocked out and said, all right, we're gonna work much harder to avoid that. We don't want to feel that again, which I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm not gonna hate on him. But I felt like it was really evident in there. And Alex did a good job of still finding ways to, like you said, he didn't get hit that much. He did a good job countering. And that makes it really hard when you don't really want to get hit. And every time you come in to throw, you're getting hit with the hook. It's like it was not going good for Jiri. I was surprised that he wasn't grappling very much early because I felt like he was able to close the distance. And he always does this weird thing with his head where he drops down real low. And I was like, why don't you just turn one of those into a takedown, a double leg?
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't really make much sense to me that he wasn't grappling that much. Obviously, he's not an elite grappler, but the hard part is closing the distance and changing levels. And he was doing those things. He just wasn't following through with the takedowns. So it was really confusing. And then when he did try to go takedown, he got in on the hips and then went up for like a clinch trip. And it's like Alex isn't that great at defending takedowns, but he's going to be much better if you push him up against the fence and try and go throw for throw in comparison to changing levels and doing more of a traditional wrestling double leg or single leg. So very confusing to me from Jiri, but then again, Alex looked good, landed his power shots, and if Alex is landing his power shots, like it's not going to be a long fight, and it wasn't. He drops in at the first, and like you said, I think that fight gets finished if there's more time left in round 1 when he lands that shot, and then round 2, it kind of felt like he was walking out to just go get baptized after he was already hurt. It felt like he was getting sent out there just to get really sent into another dimension, and that's exactly what happened with the head kick. So, um, I do want to get your thoughts on the stoppage because I saw some talk about the stoppage. Obviously, last time it was early. This time, people are saying it's late. Did you think the stoppage was late?
It's hard to say. I don't think it was necessarily late. Maybe it could have been stopped 1 or 2 strikes before. I mean, looking at the stats, Alex landed 11 significant strikes in that second round. The first strike he threw put him on his butt and pretty much put him to sleep. So maybe it could have been stopped right then and there. But in this sport, and we've seen it in fights before, you have to, you have to finish it. You have to make sure it is done and there's no question about it. And when he's moving that fast, and it was 13 seconds into the second round was when it was officially stopped. It's hard to quickly get right in there and stop him from, especially a guy of Alex's size and power. I don't have any issue with the stoppage, apart from maybe the fact it could have been stopped 1 or 2 strikes earlier. But at the end of the day, he's throwing 10 shots really quickly to finish it. So I have
Okay.
no issue. So
Okay, I feel the same way. So we're on the same page on that. Because to me, a lot of people wanted. I feel like there were people who wanted it stopped after he landed the head kick. But to me, Yuri falls on his back and then flips to his stomach.
yeah.
And I never like to see a fight get stopped when a fighter is switching positions. Like if you're on your back going to your stomach, I don't think that's a point in time where you should stop the fight. And
Mhm.
then once you get to you like all fours and you like there's the potential of working up. So he got the chance to change positions and then potentially work up. And then when he wasn't able to work up from the position he changed to, he got stopped. Like you said, could have been a strike or two early, but I mean, it's Alex Pereira on top throwing ground and pound. So, all right. I think we're on the same page on that. So that's you're never gonna get a perfect stoppage. The chance you see that is none. So,
And I
uh,
do think, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Had it been stopped right after the head kick with Yuri kind of still trying to move positions, I think people would have complained the other way, said it's too early of a stoppage once again, and discredit it to Alex. So,
mhm,
as a UFC ref, you can never win one way or another.
that is true. And maybe this is selfish and against fighter safety, but I kind of prefer late stoppages. I I don't like to see Bobby Green and Jalen Turner. I don't like to see incompetence.
No,
But I think I'd rather see a strike or two more, just because then you don't have to deal with Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov. You don't have to deal with Yuri versus Alex One. It's like you can really get all these like controversies out of the
mm,
sport if you just one or two extra. But
yeah.
I understand why people would disagree. So
In the words of Jorge Masvidal, it was super necessary.
yes, yes, it's super necessary, and that is the only fight this weekend, by the way. Nate Diaz and Jorge
Right.
Masvidal in boxing. So
God.
have fun, everybody. I don't know if I'll be watching, but I'm sure some people will.
Don't know.
Um,
Don't know about that one. It's gonna be. I don't even know what to expect from that fight. Like,
yeah, that whole event is crazy. Ryan
yeah.
Garcia's younger brother's on it, and Anthony Pettis is on it. It's something. Uh, anyways, back to the UFC 303 main event. What do you want to see next from Alex? Because I think there's a lot of different routes. Well, maybe not a lot of different routes. I think a better way to phrase this is there's no clear, oh, we need to see this fight.
Yeah.
And I think that is what opens multiple different routes, multiple different fights. The fact that there isn't one clear thing that has to happen. So, what do you make of kind of the light heavyweight division and Alex Pereira? And where would you like to see? What would you like to see the champ do next?
I think to me, there's one straight answer. I think it has to be time for Magomed Ankalaev to get his title shot. Once that happens, because I know there's a lot of talks, and Joe Rogan was plugging the hell out of him moving up to fight John Jones. John's going to fight Stipe one day. Don't know if it'll be this year. The only time I can see Alex doing a fight with John is if Stipe pulled out or something happened and they needed a last minute replacement. I think Ankalaev's the way to go. He does only have, as far as Alex is concerned, he has what, two title defenses now in this light heavyweight division. You can't. I don't think you should be able to move up with that. The ones we've seen moving up are Izzy to light heavyweight when he had dominated and destroyed everybody in the division, and then Alexander Volkanovski moving up after he destroyed everyone in his division. There's still a couple guys left. Has to fight Ankalaev. Maybe get a Jamal Hill rematch. Maybe a Jan Blachowicz, but those two guys aren't exactly fighting anytime soon. It doesn't seem. So I think Ankalaev is the way to go. I just don't like the idea of him moving up to heavyweight right now, especially with guys like John Jones and Tom Aspinall at top. I think he'll be completely outclassed on the ground. Sure, he's got Glover there, so it's kind of he's improving, I'm sure, but it's a different level when you have to go and fight John Jones style grappling or Tom Aspinall, who has just as much power, I think, as Alex Pereira. maybe a little less, but can take you onto the ground and finish you there much quicker.
Yeah. I want to start with the heavyweight portion of this. I agree. And there was like, I don't remember who it was, but on the official UFC broadcast, someone asked like, should we be injecting Alex Pereira into the Stipe Miocic and John Jones conversation, like insinuating that like the question was basically, should Alex fight John instead of Stipe?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the fact that we have even gotten to that point is so ridiculous when you have an interim champion that's getting railroaded so that Stipe can fight the champion.
Yep.
And that doesn't matter to me if it's Tom or Curtis, because obviously they're going to fight and one of them's going to win. I have my opinion of who wins that fight. We'll talk about that later, and I'll write the preview for that later. But I don't care if it's Tom. I don't care if it's Curtis. One of them is going to have the interim belt. Tom has done a bunch of great work, beating Pavlich, outstanding, finishing him like he did for the interim belt. And then if he beats Curtis, like, how do you say this guy doesn't deserve to fight for the undisputed belt? On the flip side, if Curtis beats Tom, and I'm not, secret being out, I think Tom wins that fight. But if Curtis wins, like, you got to give him his respect and you got to give him his shot. So to me, it's so crazy that that question was even brought up on a UFC broadcast when you have two guys fighting for the interim belt and then Stipe gets to fight for the undisputed belt. So you already have one guy getting screwed no matter how you twist it. And now you want to screw them again with Alex. It'd just be insane to me. And honestly, if Alex really wants to fight at heavyweight, I think that it makes much more sense. Go defend your belt 2 or 3 times more, and let the heavyweight division sort itself out. Like, to me, there's just too many questions with John and Stipe, and does John retire, and when does Tom or Curtis get an undisputed title fight? Like, can we just let all of that dust settle? And then when we have a champion, when we have like someone sitting atop the throne and there's no questions and they've dealt with a couple contenders, then can we, talk about this Alex thing, assuming he's still in that position. And if he is still in that position, there's a better chance that he earned the right to move up. So that's kind of my thought on the move up.
Yeah. I will.
Now,
the only guy I wouldn't mind seeing him fight if all things were necessary in the heavyweight division was Cyril Gahn.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be an outstanding, gonna go up and not fight for the title. Like, if he wanted to do like a detour fun fight, I think that would be the way to approach that.
I would say it's similar. I know he lost the belt to Izzy the second time, but similar to what he did with the light heavyweight when he moved up there. He went and fought Jan Blachowicz first. He wasn't immediately thrown into a title shot. I think with the way, as you said, the heavyweight division's a mess right now with that title picture and everything. If he wants to move up to heavyweight, do something like that. But,
yeah. And the chances you get Cyril Gahn to fight a non-champion or a non-interim champion are like zero. Like, he only wants to fight John or Stipe. Who knows? He already declined Tom once.
Yeah.
Actually twice, at least twice, because he wanted to fight him after Paris, and then they offered him the fight on 305 or 30. What's that?
304.
Yeah, 304. My bad. They offered him that fight, so he doesn't want to fight anybody. So maybe if you give him a champion, he'll say yes. Anyways, back to this light heavyweight division. I do like the name Magomed Ankalaev, but I'm not gonna be like that upset if they screw Ankalaev. Like, I have very openly been like, I think they're gonna screw Ankalaev so he doesn't fight Pereira, and I honestly don't care, because to me, if you just look at what Magomed Ankalaev has done. Like, you talk about a guy who has shot himself in his own foot over and over and over again. Like, at some point, it's like, all right, is he getting screwed? Like, he got a title shot against Jan Blachowicz, fought to a draw. Why did he fight to a draw? Because he was too dumb to wrestle in the first 3 rounds of the fight. Like, if he wrestled in the first 3 rounds of the fight, he would have won the belt. But he didn't, because he decided to fight like an idiot. So that's his own fault. And then he hits Johnny Walker with an illegal knee. That's his fault as well. And then they run it back with Johnny Walker, and he knocks Walker out. Now, if we started handing out title fights to everyone who knocked out Johnny Walker, there'd be a long line of guys waiting to fight for the title. So with that being said, he's probably the best guy that doesn't have a fight book. So I understand if they give it to Magomed, but at the same time, if they screw Magomed and give it to someone else, I'm not going to be like, oh well, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I could really just care less about Magomed. Um,
I guess that brings me to like who would you want instead of Magomed then in the light
that's my
heavyweight?
that's I guess that's a great way to phrase it. Is I don't have anyone else. That's why I'm okay with Magomed. I'm
Yeah.
just saying if they screw him, might as well. Um, I'd still like to see Jamal and Alex again. I do think Jamal needs to win one. Um, Jan Blachowicz, with all due respect to Jan, he's a 41-year-old who just had double shoulder surgery.
Mhm.
And I'm not too optimistic about him fighting for a title or beating Alex at this point in his career. I hope he proves me wrong because I have been higher on Jan than most since the Izzy fight. So um, this is a very long-winded way to say I don't care if they screw Magomed, but he's probably the best choice, if that makes sense. Once you
Oh,
get past
absolutely.
Jan, you're looking at Rockets, Krylov, Ozdemir, um, Khalil Roundtree. I think those guys all. I think Khalil Roundtree would be a great fight for Alex, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done for all of those guys. So
At thi-
I could care less, honestly.
at this point, a Johnny Walker title shot after
Johnny
being back.
Walker said he's going to heavyweight.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
Oh God, he can't handle the power in the light heavyweight division. So let's go fight guys who are even more powerful.
Yeah. I think the hope is that he's going to knock them out before they knock him out, and that it'll be too quick to touch him. But
Who
I'm not
knows?
going to try and follow Johnny Walker's logic. It's just
No,
not worth it.
not at all.
All right.
What do you,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what do you think happens with Jiri? Where do you think he goes? Because he came out and said after the fight, like he needs to change something and quickly, otherwise he's should just stop fighting.
Good point. I forgot about Yuri, and that is a great discussion. I don't hate the idea of him versus Jamal or Jan. I think those are both ways to approach that. We already saw Rakic. So I think him or Jan would, or Jamal or Jan would make sense. Because to me, Jamal and Jan are both fights that it felt like we were going to see, but never saw. Like it felt like we were going to get a Jamal and Yuri title fight. It felt like Jan Blachowicz and Yuri were going to cross paths because Jan was the champion. Yuri's coming up, and then Glover upsets Jan. And then Yuri beats Glover. So they were very close to crossing paths for a title. So I wouldn't hate seeing those two names. And like I said, I'm not overly thrilled with the idea of Jan being a 41-year-old coming off double shoulder surgery, but Yuri Prochazka just got knocked out. I mean, twice in the same fight, basically. So it's not like he's going to be entering his next fight on ideal circumstances either. So I would like to hear your thoughts on Yuri as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Jamal Hill or Jan Blachowicz are the two ways to go, unless you really want to screw Ankalaev again and make him fight Yuri. But otherwise, I would love to see both of those fights. I think Yuri Jamal Hill would be an awesome banger, and then Jan, we get to see what he looks like after double shoulder surgery, and at 41 years old, see if he can even still compete in this division. So something like that. But I've always enjoyed watching Yuri fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been kind of Alex is better,
Yeah.
and that's what it's come down to.
I also think it's gotten to the point that Alex is like a very, very bad matchup for him.
Oh yeah,
Like he's gonna kick the hell out of your leg, and he's the only guy with the power to crack your like. Yuri has an outstanding chin.
yeah.
Alex just has the power to crack the chin. It's like a very bad matchup for him. I feel like.
And then
The
that's
other
another.
thing that I go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another thing. Like we don't know what we saw Volkanovski get knocked out cold by Islam and then get rocked again. So maybe Yuri's chin might be broken now. So you never know.
Mhm.
That's always something else to think about, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is a concern I have for him at well. And the next thing I'm going to ask, I don't know if it helps that, I don't know if it hurts that. Depends on how you look at it. But there have been like slight rumors about him moving down to 185. I'm
Oh,
not sure that it's ever been anything serious, but I do want to ask if you think a weight class change would make sense for Yuri at this point in his career 31, lost to the champ twice. I don't know if that's too drastic of a change to make because I feel like he could probably outlast Pereira, if that makes sense. Similar to Holloway Volkanovski. Feels like Holloway outlasted Volkanovski a little bit in that division, even though he couldn't beat him.
Mhm.
Well, aside from the second fight, but that's a whole nother discussion. um, so I could see the yes and no to this, but what's your perspective on a potential Jiri drop to middleweight? Like I said, nothing crazy substantial there, but there have been some slight rumors in the past, nothing since the loss, but that has been something discussed previously.
I mean, I'm not opposed. He's 31. I'm more just curious, like, would he be able to cut down to 185? Because that's a big drop from. It's not like you're going down 10 pounds. You're going down 20 pounds from 205, and we know he probably walks around much heavier than that. So I think that's the only downside to it. This middleweight division is also a mess already as it is with everybody at the top. So I don't know if throwing Jiri down there helps the picture at all. If he was to go down, who would you want to see him fight? Because I mean, the only one I've seen now that you bring it up, the rumors was I saw a rumor this past week of someone just throwing it out there, probably on Twitter, but like him fighting Hamza. That's the only one I've seen. I don't know what other fights. Maybe him, like, because Robert Whitaker looked good. Maybe he deserves a title shot. Izzy's getting the title shot. Sean Strickland's just there.
Yeah. Well,
Iamava.
here's the thing that I want to say about that is this is just the rankings. Imagine Yuri Prochazka versus Dricus Duplessis, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Robert Whitaker, Nazardine Imavov, Jared Cannonier. Like, that's the top 5 guys. I mean, that's in the champ, so it's technically 6. I mean, that's 6 pretty good fights, if you ask me.
Yeah.
It helps that Yuri's always one half of a great fight, but like that's 6 really good fights. If you want to throw Paulo Costa into the mix, Hamzat Chimaev into the mix, there's 2 more. Like, that's the thing that intrigues me about it more than anything is that, I mean, pick anybody you want. I think it's a good fight, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And they are fun fights. Yuri's style just always makes for an entertaining fight one way or another.
Yeah. But to answer your original question, to be a little bit more specific, Dricus Duplessis, it feels like at this point is going to fight either, or I should say, if Dricus defends his belt against Izzy, or if Izzy wins, like, who would get the next title shot? If Izzy beats Dricus, I'd be pretty confident Sean gets it because it feels like to me like that's just a natural progression of that. If Dricus wins, it's a different discussion. But point being, you have Sean and Rob there sitting there, Jiri fighting the one that doesn't get the title fight, and obviously we've gotten deep down a like hypothetical rabbit hole, but I think that would make sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd be the one who gets left out of those two, or maybe the loser of the DDP and Izzy fight.
Yeah, that's true as well. That's a good shout. All right, now hopefully it moves down because that would actually be entertaining, and it would make the discussion there a little bit more a little bit more relevant in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but that's all right. I like nothing wrong with having a little bit of fun sometimes, talking potential fights that could happen.
Exactly.
All right. Moving down to the co-main, this was about as crazy as it gets. Dan Ige fills in for Brian Ortega to fight Diego Lopes on, I don't know, 5 hours notice, 4 hours notice. Hours is the times we're talking here. He lives and trains in Vegas. Got the call that Ortega could potentially be out. Ige, during the card, after the card had started, takes this fight, comes in, they weigh him in, and they have to reweigh in Diego Lopes because it got moved to a 165-pound fight when it was originally scheduled. Well, it was originally scheduled for 145, and then they had it bumped to 55 because Ortega couldn't make 45. Then they had Lopes weigh in again at 165 hours before the fight. So this for Dan Ige is about as like talk about being a BMF, like stepping in to fight Diego Lopes, who is on a 3-fight first round finish streak. That's a BMF. And for Lopes, he says, yes, I'll fight Brian Ortega at 145 on 3 weeks. Then after he had already gotten to 145, he says, all right, that's fine. We can bump it up to 55. Then after he weighs in at 55, the next day, he says, yes, we can do it at 65 against a different guy. both these guys, absolute warriors.
Yep.
What'd you make of the co-main event and I don't know if circus is the right word because that kind of has a negative connotation to it. We'll say madness and chaos.
I mean, you said it first there. Absolute props to both of these guys for doing what they did. Ortega Lopez would have been a fun fight, but shout out Dan Ige for stepping up when he was needed the most. And I'm not going to lie, he looked pretty good. If this fight wasn't 3 rounds, I think Ige wins this fight. Because sure, Lopez was definitely the more prepared and all that for the first 2 rounds. But Dan Ige turned something. He found that next gear in the 3rd round and was kind of piecing him apart. I want to say, didn't he go down? He had a takedown in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Because he was boxing him up, and I don't know if I agree with that move by him.
Great point. I'm 100% with you. I don't remember. I want to say it was like a Lopez clinch or like takedown attempt, and then he defended it. Lopez got to his back. And also, we're recording this on Thursday, July 4th. So shout out to everyone for the 4th of July. But also, quite a few days after the fight. So memory's a little foggy on this exact sequence, but there is a sequence where he does, with about a minute left, go in and accept top position. I don't know if he necessarily got a takedown, but I'll say he accepted top position, I think would be a good way to phrase it.
Yeah. But I mean, he was piecing him up in that 3rd round. It was fun. I really enjoyed this fight for all the chaos and madness that ensued with it throughout. I mean, this entire card has just been filled with chaos and unknowing from first fight to at least the top 3 fights. So,
yeah. And to your point about the grappling, I thought it was a terrible decision with all due respect to Dan Ige. And listen, anyone that has been a consistent viewer of this podcast or a consistent reader of the articles, I pick Dan Ige to win fights frequently. I might be the biggest Dan Ige fan out there. Obviously, we still, look at things objectively. I don't just pick him just because I like him. But just from a skill set perspective, I pick him to win fights because I think he's going to win them. And I do that because he's a very good boxer, a very underrated boxer for that 145-pound division. So when there's a minute-long stretch where he was hitting Lopez pretty hard in that 3rd round. And then he gets in top position. And listen, he landed some great elbows and some great ground and pound shots. However, he was hitting him way too hard on the feet, and he was down 2-0, and he needed the knockout. That felt like a stand up and keep letting the hands go to me. So I don't love that decision, but I'm also not going to hold it too much against him considering the circumstances, 0 game plan. Like, he's in Diego Lopez. I mean, he was getting hit by Diego Lopez in the first 2 rounds. He wasn't getting hit clean, but he was getting hit enough to know, I don't really want to feel this guy's power, so that might have played into his decision as well. And one thing I want to highlight with Dan Ige before we move on to what we want to see these guys do next. This guy has fought a lot of dangerous fighters in the UFC. Here are his losses in the UFC. Kelvin Kattar, decision. Korean Zombie, decision. Josh Emmett, decision. Movsar Evloev, decision. Bryce Mitchell, decision. Diego Lopez, decision. Now, every single one of those fighters either has scary knockout power. I mean, we're talking Kattar, Josh Emmett, or nasty subs in Evloev, Mitchell, Lopez. Lopez has both. And then Korean Zombie has both submissions and power. He fought like a murderer's row of dudes who will finish you. Did not get finished one time. Obviously, I skipped over the wins because that's not really what the point I'm trying to make here. Dan Ige is very underrated for being one of the toughest and most durable guys in the sport. I don't think he gets enough credit for that just based off the guys he fought is ridiculous to not get finished once. So I want to give Dan Ige that credit before we move on from him as a fighter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you look at all those guys, pure killers, every single one of them. And Ige still has never been finished in his professional MMA career in general. I
Mhm.
thought if it was going to happen, it might have been Diego Lopes on 3 or 4 hours notice, but he proved everyone wrong, stepped up when he needed it. And got to say, on the Diego Lopes side of things, he came in preparing for one fighter, had to change everything, kind of brand new game plan, and still looked damn good in those first 2 rounds.
Yep. Yep. And Ortega, most dangerous BJJ guy in the division,
Mhm.
to not saying Ortega can't strike, but to Ige, little submission offense, a lot of boxing offense. It's not like he went from boxer to boxer or southpaw boxer to southpaw boxer or BJJ guy to BJJ guy. He did a 180 on the type of fighter he was fighting. So a lot of credit to Lopes for that performance. And speaking of Diego, both these guys I think want fights at the Sphere.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to see them fight at the Sphere, one or both of them? And then we'll start with Diego. Who would you like to see Diego fight, if it's at the Sphere or a different card?
I think if they're making the Sphere one of the biggest cards in UFC history, you have to give these guys the credit they deserve. Sure, they are very entertaining fighters and can put up wars. I would love to see these guys both on the Sphere card, maybe as a prelim or as the opener for the main card. But one way or another, I think they both deserve it and have earned the respect of everybody in the MMA community from this weekend. As far as matchups go, for Diego Lopes, I still want to see that Ortega fight. But Ortega looks like he's moving up to 155 for the Sphere. Not sure who he would fight, who he's going to fight up there. I wouldn't mind seeing like an Oliveira fight. I think that would be very fun.
That's
High,
the name. That's the name that I have said consistently for Ortega. I haven't said that on here, but discussions I've had in person with people, they always
yeah.
say, "Who do you think is going to 155 to fight?" And I've always said Oliveira. So I am 100% on your side with that one.
To me, it's like Oliveira and Diego Lopes, both extremely good jiu-jitsu fighters and extremely dangerous on the feet. It's just like he's fighting the same guy, just a different division. And I think that makes it fun there. I would love to see the Diego Lopes fight there. I don't know what Aljamain Sterling's doing at the moment. I don't know if he has a fight booked or anything, but that's a fight that interests me, him and Diego Lopes. So that's kind of the one name in that division. I don't think he's ready for the Josh Emmett's, the Arnold Allens. I know Allen has a fight. Maybe a rematch with Movsar Evaloyev, because that's a fight Diego Lopes made his UFC debut on, I think, on short notice to fight
Yep.
Evaloyev. So give him a full camp, that one or Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah. One of the nice things about the featherweight division is there's a lot of fun names.
Yeah.
Um, I do think Josh Emmett is like a fairly. I think that's a name that could potentially come to fruition. Just based off previous Josh Emmett bookings, it feels like he is a very. He fought Ilya Taporia before, and then he fought Yair Rodriguez when Yair was the hot stuff. Josh Emmett has been the guy who, hey, fight this new, cool, up and coming guy and lose pretty convincingly. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight gets made. I like the Arnold Allen fight as well. Arnold Allen fighting Giga Chikadze. If he wins, I think that is a pretty good fight. The other thing I could see them do is I could see them do Yair versus Arnold Allen at the Sphere. So I think that may take Lopes out of there. So I think we may actually get a lot of these 145ers at the Sphere, but I do think Sterling is a likely name. I wouldn't be shocked if they convince Ortega to stay at 145. I don't think it's likely, but I do think it's possible. And he called out Volkanovski, and I just don't know if that would actually come to fruition, but I just don't know what they're going to do with Volkanovski. So I think he gets a big name. I think it's Ortega. I think it could possibly be Josh Emmett, but I feel like they're going to give Lopes someone big and try and move him up the ladder fast.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it'd be fun for him to. I mean, he seems like after this weekend, he's game to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
So he's just
Yep.
game for it.
And then moving to the Ige side of things, I would also like to see him at the Sphere.
Yeah.
I think we're a little bit. It's supposed to be Mexican Independence Day card is the whole theme of the card.
Sponsored by Riyadh season. So It's a Saudi Arabia sponsored Mexico card.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't
Yeah,
that something?
that.
But the other thing I forgot to mention with Lopes is a training partner of Alexa Grasso, and he is featured on the Ultimate Fighter quite a bit. You see him on that show, so it actually would make sense for him to fight on that card just based off that as well. Ige, I think we may see Ige in there. Maybe I just feel like they would want to give him. Ige has been consistently used as a gatekeeper, and I'm trying to figure out if they would give him a big name or a ranked guy. Maybe they give him a Sterling. Maybe they give him an Arnold Allen. Maybe they give him a Giga Chikadze. Or maybe they give him a Fernando Padilla, like someone who is not ranked, who's a Mexican who needs to break into those rankings. So I have no idea who Dan Ige is going to fight next. I don't know if he's going to go back to the gatekeeper thing he was doing or go forward to a big name because he took the opportunity in the coming event. So I have no idea who Ige is going to fight, long story short.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like he deserves maybe to get a shot at not being the gatekeeper for once and maybe get like the Aljamain Sterling to me is the most interesting person in this division just in terms of matchmaking because I have no idea what he's looking to do. I don't know where I haven't seen a single rumor of him fighting again since the Calvin Kattar fight. So he's kind of just there, and that's a fight. If you want to move Ige up and give him a higher ranked guy who he hasn't fought yet, that's not a bad one. Arnold Allen, I mean, I just don't think Arnold Allen or Giga Chikadze would be able to get out of their fight in 304 and be ready for 305. No, it'd be 306.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 months between. So maybe then. Yeah. But I still just think Ige should fight a guy like that. Or if you're not going to give him someone that high, a Leron Murphy. But is he fighting in England? No. Okay. So yeah, maybe someone like that. Just another youngish prospect who's ranked ahead of you. So you win, you get up, you lose. Gatekeeper stuff again.
Yeah. Going back to Sterling quick, the only 2 rumors I've seen for him are Mozvar Evloev, and that has fallen apart, it seems, just based off them not being able to agree to a date. And then today I saw Yair Rodriguez for Sterling at the Sphere, and I saw that and went, that's got to be fake.
Yeah.
Like, I saw that and I was like, there's no way that rumor's true. That one seems like a Twitter fib to me. I don't think they go Ortega or Yair getting submitted by Ortega and then go, all right, fight Sterling. That just, I don't buy it. So we'll see if I'm wrong, but I don't buy that one.
Especially on Mexican Independence card.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, moving down. Next fight on the card gets progressively less exciting from here. Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze. I'll let you lead this one off. I want to hear your thoughts.
I mean, this is the definition of an Anthony Smith fight.
Yeah.
He looked really, really good in his last fight. I'm blanking on who that was against.
Vitor Petrino.
Vitor Petrino, yeah. As a massive, massive underdog, came out and submitted him in the first round. Then he turns around and fights Dolidze, who's moving up a division, has looked absolutely dreadful in his last few fights, and just gets pieced apart, taken down once. If you had to miss a fight on this main card, this might have been the one to miss. But nothing about it shocked me. It's just kind of, it was there.
Yeah, it was there, unfortunately. This fight was pretty bad. Anthony Smith didn't look very good. I was watching this. I'm sitting there going, this guy has won 2 of his last 3 fights. 2 of his last. How did we let that happen? Light heavyweights. How did we let this guy win 2 of his last 3?
Yeah.
Shout out to Khalil Roundtree, because if I was watching that guy fight on a 3-fight winning streak, I would have.
Oh God.
I would have. I don't know what I would have. I would have lost faith in the sport.
And just talk about the biggest downgrade from the original fight of Jamal Hill and I can't even remember this one. Was it?
It was Khalil.
Khalil, that's right. What a downgrade from what we were meant to have to what we ended up with.
Yeah. And Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree would have gave him a reason to screw over Ankalaev.
Yep.
So the UFC was really not happy with the way this turned out. I don't even know what to say. I'm pretty lost for words, and not in like a, oh wow, this, I don't even know what to say. It's like a, yeah, it's there, I guess. I do want to ask for Dolidze. He was coming up from 185 to 205. Do you want to? He was like, I'm going to be ranked top 10 in 2 divisions. I'm going to fight in both divisions. Do you have any interest in that at all?
I mean, according to the latest rankings, he's not even ranked at light heavyweight.
So he was wrong.
He was wrong. At this point, just screw it. Just do what you want to do. You're what, 40 something years old now? 35.
Dolidze is 35.
So maybe he can do both. I wouldn't mind just seeing him move up to light heavyweight. He lost his last 2 at middleweight to Marvin Vettori. Pretty easy win there for Vettori. And then he lost to Imavov, and Imavov even had a point deducted, and he still lost the decision. So maybe it's time to leave middleweight behind, go up, fight light heavyweight. If he beat Anthony Smith, who's ranked 11th now. Maybe give him a guy like Vulcan or even, screw it, Johnny Walker. That kind of fight of 2 guys who have been very, very inconsistent and not looked great recently. Why not let him go at it?
Well, here's the thing. He already passed the Anthony Smith test, so you might as well stay at heavyweight. Or light heavyweight. Here's my thing with Dolidze. I think he should stay at light heavyweight because just looking at these rankings, does Dolidze have a better chance? Here's the 11 through 15. We got Chimaev, Kyle Brawlhole, Michel Pereira, Anthony Hernandez, and Chris Curtis. Does he have a better chance against those guys, or does he have a better chance against Carlos Ulberg, Anthony Smith, Bogdan Guskov, Dominic Reyes, Azmat Murzakhanov, or Alonzo Menafield? Like, I would much rather take my chances against the light heavyweight division.
You just look directly at the guy who he just fought in, Anthony Smith, who's ranked 11, and you look at the 11th ranked guy middleweight at Hamza. I wonder who I would rather fight.
Yeah.
The 11th ranked guy. So,
yeah, I think I'd much rather him just stay at light heavyweight and him just be in the pack of light heavyweights doing whatever the light heavyweights in the 10 to 15 spot of the rankings do. They're doing something. They're technically fighting in an octagon in sanctioned MMA fights. So we'll just let him stay with those guys. I think he fits in much better. Oh, like, if there were 2 lunch tables, that's the one that Roman Dolidze needs to be sitting there. He fits in much better with that group.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to another thrilling fight. This fight actually, for the amount of crap that this fight got for being on the main card and being a bad fight, actually ended up being fairly entertaining. Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. First round, Mayra Bueno Silva went like 40 out of 50 on significant strikes. Like, she landed a lot on Macy Chiasson. Chiasson was eating shots. Second round, Chiasson lands a takedown, lands an elbow, and I mean, pretty much just split her open from.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was a nasty cut.
A nasty, nasty cut. I've probably seen other cuts, but that's one of the worst ones we've seen in recent memory. The ref stepped in. Mayra Bueno Silva stood up. I saw the cut on her face, and I was like, "Oh, this one's done." Like, there is no chance a doctor is going to see that and let that go. So, what'd you make of this fight and this performance?
I mean, for all the crap we gave it, and we kind of everyone in the MMA community, it seemed, was really like, why the hell are we having this fight? Especially after Mayra Bueno Silva and Raquel Pennington. This was actually a fun fight. It was Mayra Bueno Silva going out and landing like a mad woman in the first round. Macy Chiasson kind of got the takedown and just landed some nasty ground and pound. I always love a grueling finish, but it's just unfortunate, I guess, that it was a doctor stoppage. I was kind of amazed that Mayra Bueno Silva, or I guess not amazed because this is the fight game, but she came out after and was like, hey, the doctor screwed me from being in an absolute war. Where was that attitude when you were fighting for the belt? I just pulled up the two stats next to each other. In this fight, she landed 53 strikes. in a round and 2 minutes. In a 5-round title fight, she landed 96 total shots. She landed about half of what she did in a title fight in a round and just under a round and a half. This is the Mayra Bueno Silva. I know obviously she lost this, but this is the kind of fighter we expected to see in the title fight and that we were excited about getting a title shot and all that. If she can keep going with this, I know she got a bad loss, bad cut. Don't know what's going to happen with that, but she's going to be back in fun. And this was actually a fun women's fight for a change compared to some of the ones we've had recently. As far as Macy Chiasson went, she looked good. Kind of, as we said on the show last week, she's just there. She hasn't been beating the toughest competition, hasn't been losing to anybody of major note. This was a good win for her.
Yeah, I like just watching this fight. I think Mayra Bueno Silva was a much better fighter.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to put money down on one of those two women, if you only gave me that fight and said which one of these women is going to be a champ, put $100 on it. I do not bet that amount of money when I bet. So when I say that, I'm like high stakes here for me. I would be like, yeah, definitely Mayra Bueno Silva. Like, she's probably not going to be a champion. But I think she's much more likely to get to that point than Macy Chiasson is, just in comparison. So I don't know what we're going to do with Macy Chiasson, and I don't know what we're going to do with Mayra Bueno Silva. Like, I feel like you can't push Chiasson up there too high, but she's already fought Irene Aldana, who's the girl ranked ahead of her. Then you're getting to Kayla Harrison, Ketlen Vieira, Juliana Pena. She's not fighting any of them. And for Mayra Bueno Silva, I don't want her to drop too low, but the woman below her in the rankings is Holly Holm, who she beat. And then you're going to drop her to Carl Hosa or Misha Tate. Like, I don't even know how they're going to book this division. Then again, I don't know that the UFC really knows or cares how they book this women's bantamweight division, unfortunately. I think they just say, oh, these two are willing to fight on this day, so I guess that works. Like, I don't think they put too much thought into it either. So I'm not going to stress myself out over who these two girls are fighting next, unless you have any names that really stand out to you.
No, absolutely no idea. I do want to ask you, are you surprised Mayra Bueno Silva dropped 3 places in the rankings?
I mean, no, because I guess technically you have to put Macy Chiasson ahead of her.
Yeah.
But how good do you feel about putting Macy Chiasson like high in the top 5? Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like that's like,
point.
yeah, kind of the way you had to do it. Because like, how would you feel if they had Macy Chiasson ranked ahead of Kayla Harrison? You'd be like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, then I will say though, if that happened, then that's the fight to make a Kayla Harrison, Macy Chiasson. But I just don't know where the hell this division's going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen any rumors of Raquel Pennington fighting. Juliana Pena is probably somewhere talking.
Rumors Pennington Pena for Salt Lake City 307.
Okay.
So at least they're getting on with it.
Yeah.
And then Kayla's going to fight the winner, I assume. So
And then that
I
just
don't know
leaves,
where that puts everyone else. But
then that leaves Vieira just sitting there. So maybe that's the fight. If she's going to be the one left out, make Macy and Vieira fight.
Yeah. Ketlen Vieira has some of the most power in the division now, and then she found God, and now she's afraid to hurt people in the octagon, so she just pushes them up against a cage. So great addition to the top 5, Ketlen Vieira. All right, let's move on to
another
the welterweight matchup that opened the card, which actually ended up being less exciting than the fight we were making fun of for definitely going to be boring. This fight was more boring than that fight. So not as boring as Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze, though I will add. All right. Ian Machado Garry versus Michael Venom Page. We had Ian Machado Garry win this one 2-1 on all 3 scorecards, unanimous decision. Did you agree with the decision?
I guess so. I forget which round. Which round did Michael Venom Page win?
2. Because first round was Ian Garry back take, hold him in body triangle. Second round was not very many strikes landed, but Michael Venom Page landed like 2 or 3 that were like, oh, that might hurt him. Then round 3 was like
Got
Michael Venom Page had some top time. Ian Garry got to the back, and round 3 was close, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, I have no issue with this decision. It was a complete boring fight. And I mean, just looking through the stats again, because like we said, this is 5 days after the fight happened where we're recording. The 2 rounds he won, he got a takedown, just held him in the body triangle, took his back, kind of just controlled him. No real shots landed. They pretty much landed the same amount of shots as in the Mayra Bueno Silva and Macy Chiasson fight. That was 64. No, that was 64 for Chiasson, 51 for Mayra Bueno Silva. This was 65 for Ian Garry and 52 for Michael Venom Page.
In more than twice the amount of time.
Yep, over 3 rounds. I expected so much more from this fight. I have my opinions on what Michael Venom Page should do next, and I don't know if it involves the UFC, but that's just me. After that performance, they looked scared to hit each other. They looked scared to get close.
I half agree with that. I think Ian Garry was scared.
Yeah.
I think Michael Venom Page was scared to commit and get taken down. But I think I think Ian Garry didn't want to strike in this fight, and I don't think he landed a single good shot on the feet. At least MVP landed like 2 or 3 where I was like, oh, that looks like it did something. But Ian Garry, I don't think landed a single significant strike on the feet. And then all of his significant strikes, I'm pretty sure, were ground and pound, which the way they hand out significant strikes for ground and pound is very different than the way they do it. I think a lot of those strikes are not significant strikes.
No.
Like, for comparison, the shots that Dan Ige was landing on Diego Lopes in the last minute, significant. The strikes that Ian Garry was landed when he had the body triangle and was just kind of bop, 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 like, okay. Like, Michael Venom Page looks like he took 0 damage, so I'm not sure how significant those would be if they didn't do any damage. But, yeah. And to the scorecards real quick, you want to know the way I scored this fight? I scored it first round, Garry, second round, MVP, third round, who gives a shit? Like, that's the way the third round went. I was like, all right, who cares? Yeah. I was like, if you don't have a bet on this fight, how could you possibly care who wins? Like, that's the way I felt. So they could have called it a draw out of not wanting to score the third round. They could have said 10-9, first round, Garry, 10-9, second round, MVP, third round, judges left. And I would have said, yeah, good job. That's the best job the judges has done all year. So, yeah, exactly. So I could really care less about who won this fight. And like you said, it was pretty bad. And this is the thing that I don't like about Ian Garry. He's talking about, oh my God, after the fight, he's like, when my career is done and they say who's the GOAT, the names they're going to bring up are John Jones, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, and Ian Machado Garry. And I was like, yeah, after that performance, sure they will, dude. It's like when he was going in to fight on the Sean O'Malley card, he's like, I'm the biggest star on this card. It's like, there's 2 ways you can become a star. People can like you. Actually, you need to do both. People need to like you, and you need to finish people. People hate Ian Machado Garry, and he wins every fight by boring decision.
Yeah.
He made a Jeff Neal fight boring. Like,
yeah, and that just doesn't happen. And I really enjoyed Ian Garry until this fight. I thought he was entertaining. I thought, for the most part, obviously he's had some boring decisions as of late, but when he started out in the UFC, he was so entertaining. He was going for the finishes. Now he's trying to just protect his – he seems like he's just trying to protect his record and just get decision wins and move up bit by bit. Yeah, he didn't move up at all in this rankings. Michael Venom Page actually moved up in these rankings somehow. I don't understand.
I disagree with that. But
he's now tied with Vicente Luque for 13th place.
Wow. We got to get some of these welts. I know they are good, but welterweight has some prospects. Thank God for Shavkat. Thank God for Jack Della. Ian Machado Garry, you're supposed to be one of those guys. Let's start acting like those two.
Yeah.
Let's get Michael Morales in here. There's some other guys at welterweight. Like, let's start turning over some of these guys at the bottom portion of these rankings. But yeah, I'm just like, I can't stand like I'm gonna go dog walk Michael Venom Page, and then it turns into you getting hit hard and then being like he claimed was the faster fighter too. It's like you say all these things and then absolutely zero back it up. You don't back it up at all. Um, I don't even know what I want to see next for me and Garry. Who do you think Ian and Garry should fight? Because we've
Honestly,
got he's 7 in the rankings. You've got the guy below, above him and below him, and Burns and Brady booked to fight each other. Jack Della Maddalena has got the broken arm. Maybe he can return soon. We don't really know. Then you've got Colby. Then you've got Shavkat, Bilal, and Kamaru. Like, I don't even know who the hell I want him to fight.
I mean, if I had to pick one, only because I think it would force him to actually stand and strike, would be Colby.
Yeah.
Because Colby, you're not just going to take Colby down and do what he did to Michael Venom Page. Colby's got too high IQ of wrestling, kind of crazy as well. So there's that thing of like you have to worry about that takedown, and then maybe his best shot would be standing on the feet and just going at it. Otherwise, I really do not have any opinion. Maybe just throw him to Shavkat, let Shavkat just finish off, get all the hype out of there, and then we can move on with our days.
Yeah, but here's my thing, though, is that Leon and Bilal fight in a month. In a month, people are just going to be saying, give Shavkat, like the second that fight's over, people are going to be going, yeah, Shavkat can fight for the title. Yeah, it's about time. Yeah. So no one's going to want to see that fight anymore. Like, maybe he fights the loser of the title fight. Maybe that's the way.
Imagine an Ian Garry Bilal Muhammad fight.
Maybe that was a bad idea. I mean, that's my point with Ian Garry is like I'm less interested than I was a year ago. If that makes sense. Like
I still think
a year ago we were going like, oh, let's fight Wonder Boy, and like now it's like
yeah. I mean, you look at it. A year ago, this time last year he was preparing for the Neil Magny fight. His last fight had been Daniel Rodriguez, where he head kicked him and then finished him with punches. Exciting. The hype is there. Now he's laying on the ground fighting Michael Venom Page and rolling around. I don't know what's changed, but he's definitely. I mean, he trains in Brazil, I think now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he trains with Charles at Chita Box Diego Lima.
You're training with Charles Oliveira. You should improve your ground game first of all, but you should also still be striking. I want to see him fight like Charles Oliveira. Then just go and either you knock someone out or submit him, or you get flatlined yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing about all those Chita Box Diego Lima guys. All of them are crazy people.
Yeah,
like, and I say that as a compliment. They're all insane. They're all like, I'm gonna hit you hard, and I have crazy submissions, and have fun dealing with it. Like, maybe you can win, but good luck. Like, those are all aggressive fighters, and I just don't see the same. He's a lot more point fight in comparison to those guys. And he still gets hit. Like, how are you going to be the point fighter and get outstruck? Like, I don't really, it's not adding up to me. I do want to hear your MVP take before we move on.
So, okay, first of all, just something I thought about while I was watching this fight was, especially in that third round, I was thinking, okay, you should have gotten a drunk Irishman from the crowd, a drunk Englishman from the crowd, put them in the same room together, and that would have been a more entertaining fight.
Probably true, yes.
As far as this, for Michael Venom Page, like, he looked surprisingly good against Kevin Holland. I'll give him credit for that. I didn't think he was going to do as well, but it was more that trickery and all that. He looked like he had no right being really in there to this weekend. Not saying Ian Garry was any better, but Michael Venom Page, he expects to be this star and kind of make a big name, become a champion. I don't think he was even a champion in Bellator, was he?
I don't know. I know he lost to Diego Lima, who was the champ. I think he got a really bad decision to win in England. Like, he lost the fight and they gave it to him. I have to go refresh up on my Bellator history, but
he never won the belt in Bellator. He lost in a semifinal to Douglas Lima and then fought for the interim title and lost a split decision there. So
Douglas Lima knocked him the hell out in that fight. Hit him with the leg kick, and then the leg kick dropped him, and then I believe it was an uppercut, smoked him with an uppercut. So
so
he
yes,
got lost bad in one of those title
that
fights.
that's a way of me saying I don't understand exactly the hype behind Michael Venom Page, and he's 37 now. Maybe he has one more UFC fight left in him, but there's a place that we talk about more frequently than we do that
I knew this is what you're going to bring up. That's why
I
I asked
think
you to talk about
I
it.
think this is where he will thrive. Karate combat. I think and part of it, joking aside, I actually think he would thrive there. He has some very good karate skill, and hey, he seems like he wants to fight for entertainment's purposes. Not that this weekend was any recollection of that, but if he's not fighting in the UFC, I don't see him going back to Bellator. I don't see him going to PFL. Something like that would just be fun. And for those who watch this show consistently, you know how much we love karate combat.
Shout out Rafael Alves, by the way. If
Yeah.
you didn't see that knockout over the weekend,
Well,
Rafael Alves versus James Vick. I mean, James Vick. If you've been watching the UFC for a long time, and James Vick is known as, he got knocked out by Gaethje. He got knocked out quite a few times. I believe he got knocked out bad by Barbosa. I'd have to go double check everybody that knocked him out. Known for getting knocked out, Rafael Alves, exciting, like flashy guy, had that war with Drew Dober, left the UFC. He landed a flying switch kick and put James in. I mean, Karate Combat does all the weird, like, space shit in, like, I don't even know how to describe what they do with, like, the setting of where they fight. But James Vick thought he was in outer space when he got knocked out. He literally looked up and saw stars. Like, literally. That's Karate Combat for you. So if
but
you need
also,
to know the hype around Karate Combat, go watch that knockout and you're going to go, oh, okay.
and that's what I could see Michael Venom Page doing. I could see him throwing some flying shit like that and landing a nasty knockout. Also, want to say just quickly off the karate combat side. Was it this weekend's card where the president put a guy in a chokehold?
Yeah. They had a fight almost broke out between a cornerman, and the president of Karate Combat is an MMA coach.
Yeah.
He coaches a couple of fighters. Francisco Prado is one of them. I don't know his whole staple of fighters off the top of my head, but he coaches fighters, and he, someone's cornerman started, raining there, thought it was going to be a brawl. President of Karate Combat puts him in a rear naked choke, chokes him out. No more concern anymore. So, I mean, they had a house party for Karate Combat. They put a pit in the backyard and had people walking through a house party to get to the pit to fight it. Karate Combat it's nothing like you're ever going to see before.
Karate combat's what the PFL thinks it is.
Unironically, I do enjoy watching Karate Combat and bare knuckle more
really
than
fun.
the PFL because they're just there to have a good time. They're not there to spend 6 hours telling you that they're better than the UFC. Every time PFL has somebody fight, this guy is the best. This is the best boxer in the world. This is the most exciting lightweight on the planet. It's like, all right, don't lie to me now. You're lying to me.
They're in the smart cage. They can say whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, they say a lot of dumb shit in the smart cage. That's my problem with PFL. All right. I do want to add this on MVP before we go to final thoughts. I think he'll stay in the UFC. I think there's going to be a circuit of him fighting Jeff Neal, Buckley, Magny, the winner of Vicente Luque and Nick Diaz. Like, I feel like there's just going to be this circle of, like, here's a guy who will play Vicente or MVP's game, then he'll win 2, and then it's like, all right, Vicente, now, or all right, MVP, now go fight Sean Brady and get submitted. Go fight Burns and get submitted. So I feel it, or Wonder Boy as well. Wonder Boy could probably play the game with them and may win. But I feel like they're going to give him guys who are going to play the game, then he's going to win 2, and then they give him someone who won't play the game with them, then he loses. So I just feel like that's the course of action we're going to see from MVP throughout the rest of his UFC career.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to something like that. Like, I still think it's crazy how the Wonder Boy fight still gets a little bit of talk about, but after he beat Kevin Holland, everyone was like, have him fight Wonder Boy. That is the fight to make. I don't know if the hype's still there, but any of those other guys, I'm fine with.
Yep. All right. Final thoughts. I'll let you lead us off. Prelims, lots of action on the prelims. Well, a decent amount, not a lot. I guess that's not the right word. There were some real stinkers on the prelims. But from a general perspective, what stood out to you on these UFC 303 prelims?
The one guy I'm gonna bring out, obviously, like you could talk about Peyton Talbot, but that was to be expected. He was minus 2,000, it seemed. Jean Silva had a nasty walk-off uppercut against Charles Jourdain, and I really enjoyed Charles Jourdain. He's a fun fighter. I think I picked him to win on verdict on verdict. I picked him, and he just landed a nasty uppercut, Jean Silva. And now, last night or yesterday, it was announced that Drew Dober's opponent for UFC Denver in 2 weekends' time, I guess. So not this weekend, next weekend, fell through. So just after 2 weeks' notice, he's got another fight coming up, and that'll be a fun one. Him and Drew Dober will be a good fight.
Yep, in elevation, taking short notice on elevation. So, big credit. Damon Jackson the same as well. Because Ige was supposed to fight Chepe Mariscal. That fight got called off because Ige takes the co-main event here. So Damon Jackson steps in to fight in the co-main against Chepe Mariscal. So credit to Damon Jackson and Silva, because both those guys were not on UFC Denver. Now they both are. About a week and a half, 2 weeks out from the fight, and they're both on that card now. So credit to both of them for stepping in on short notice for a card that had a lot of cancellations. That fight night got pretty destroyed by bouts falling through. So credit to those guys for stepping up to do their best to save that card.
Yeah.
All right, I actually have a couple I want to shout out. Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer's a guy that I've always really liked from a skills perspective. I always really liked his boxing. He went out there, put Marc-Andre Barriault on an absolute stretcher. I wouldn't say that's his best performance, but I'll say it's always good to see a guy come off a high-profile loss. A lot of people calling him frauds. Got a lot of hate for that loss. Went out there and knocked the guy out in the first round. And Marc-Andre Barriault, he's kind of there to get hit. Kind of saw this one coming. But at the same time, it's good to see a guy go through in a spot like that. So credit to Joe Pyfer for the bounce back and putting out a good performance, getting a highlight reel knockout. Another one on the resume. Early prelims, Vinicius Oliveira goes out there against rookie Simone. And I thought this was one of the I don't want to say worse. That's a little harsh because you got Ricky Simone didn't look his best. I'll just say that. That said, Vinicius Oliveira thought he was going to be outmatched in the grappling. He went out there, defended takedowns, threw his shots out there, landed at a good amount. He looked gassed in the third round. He looked gassed in the second round. Magically in the third round, all of a sudden, he's got enough gas in the tank to throw the most amount of strikes he's thrown in the whole fight after being gassed out in round two. I have no idea what type of cardio he's doing. But Vinicius Oliveira, good performance as well from him, and that's a guy that can be exciting. So good performances from Vinicius Oliveira and Joe Pyfer, two prospects, a little bit different stages, but both prospects. Peyton Talbot as well, you said that. He was a prospect that picked up a victory as well. Ray Tessura, prospect that picked up a victory, but I feel like his performance and his win was a little bit more sketchy in comparison to Oliveira, Pyfer, Talbot. Very concerned with the cardio and some of the fight IQ decisions. Like, this is one of my problems with there's a decent amount of guys in the UFC who do this. Take the back, choke them out, go for the rear naked choke, go for the guillotine, raise his up. Maybe don't have to chase the twister and arm locks and knee bars, and it's just very hard to land those. You're a great grappler. Can we just work on getting to the back, getting the body triangle, and submitting guys with the rear naked choke? How many championship fights have you seen a guy win via rear naked choke in comparison to a leg lock or a twister or Kimura? It's that's just a small critique I have there, but he showed some good things. Cardio looked bad as well, but that's a whole nother discussion. So those were kind of my UFC 303 final thoughts. A lot there, but we had a decent amount of prospects that needed to be discussed.
I do have one other, and I think it was probably a few years too late, but Michelle Waterson Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
about time she retired.
Yep.
So
UFC cut Andrei Arlovsky, or
yeah, that too.
contract expired, and he sounds like he's going to keep fighting. So I'm sure the PFL is going to sign him and run him out there and act like he's a former UFC champion and forget to tell you the fact that he's 45. But that's about PFL. So we'll see how that goes. All right, UFC 303 in the books. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Don't have any preview or best to plug because there is no card this weekend, so it's going to be a light on the site Vendor Sports Media. It will be a light week for written UFC articles, but I mean that's standard when there is no fights. But next week we will have podcast and we will be back to our normal schedule with preview and best bets for UFC Denver. So make sure to check us out then. And thank you for tuning in to this UFC 303 recap. I know we're a couple days late, but I feel like I had a good time, Jerry. It was a fun episode here we had today.
Always
it's always a good time when you can get karate combat in the mix.
Oh, absolutely. We had our two favorite topics on the show: karate combat and Anthony Smith. Episode, those two are always involved.
Yeah, every single episode there's an Anthony Smith and or karate combat mention, and we went 2 for 2 today, so I think that means a great episode. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you all next week. Peace.